Hello, my name is Brett Spence, and today we'll be talking about the Battle of Quatre. Alright, let's begin. After Napoleon abdicated on the 6th of April 1814, he went to Elba, where he was made Prince of Elba and was given a stipend of 2 million francs per year by the French. During Napoleon's time in Elba, he developed the island's iron mines, oversaw construction of new roads, issued decrees on modern agriculture methods, overhauled the island's legal and education system, and created a small army and navy. Meanwhile, in France, King Louis XVIII was making himself unpopular with his French subjects. He kept unpopular taxes to pay off the debt, slashed military spending, and problems between the Bourbons and imperial aristocracies. On the 26th of February 1815, Napoleon escaped Elba and landed at Gouvion on March 1st, where he was warmly received and headed for Grenoble, where on the 5th, the 5th Infantry Regiment would join Napoleon en masse, and the next day Napoleon was confronted by the 7th Infantry Regiment. Napoleon walked up to them, opened his coat, and said, "If you want to kill your emperor, here I am." Soon, the 7th Infantry Regiment shouted, "Vive l'Empereur!" and they joined Napoleon, and Napoleon marched to Paris. Meanwhile, in Paris, Louis XVIII got news of Napoleon's return, and Marshal Ney told King Louis, "I'll bring him back in an iron cage." But when they confronted Napoleon at Ussel, they'll end up joining Napoleon. King Louis, realizing that the jig was up, and fled Paris to Belgium on the 19th of March, with Napoleon entering the city the following day. In Vienna, as the Allies were carving up Europe, they got news that Napoleon had returned to power, and the Allies declared war on Napoleon himself and began to mobilize their armies, with Arthur Wellesley, the Duke of Wellington, took command of an Allied army of Brits, Dutch, Belgians, Hanoverians, Nassau, and Brunswickers in the Low Countries. The war was not what Napoleon and his supporters wanted. Due to unrest in royalist southwest France, Napoleon mobilized his army and managed to muster 280,000 men and marched his army of 122 men to the Low Countries to face Wellington's army and the Prussian army under the command of Blucher. On the 15th of June, Napoleon crossed the border into Walloon to drive a wedge between the Allied armies, with Wellington only informed of Napoleon's movements at the Duchess of Richmond's ball, and he moved his army to Quatre, with Napoleon sending Ney to take Quatre, while Napoleon moved to face Blucher's army at Ligny. When the French arrived at Quatre at 2 p.m., where the French cavalry drove off the Dutch Jaegers at Dossault Farm, and the tirailleurs fought the Dutch skirmishers at Pierrepoint and Pierremont. The Dutch formed a battle line using the 7th and 5th Militia to stop the enemy advance, but a cavalry charge from the French light cavalry nearly cut out the 5th Militia before they could form square, with them being charged by the cavalry 4 times, with them only falling back after suffering heavy fire from the French cannons and skirmishers. As they retreated, their nerves started to waver till William, Prince of Orange, rallied the men and led them back to face the French. In the Boussu woods, the Dutch held the line against the French despite heavy fire from the French. Back at the 5th Militia, as the French were forming their battle line, the French light cavalry charged them and routed the 5th Militia, with the Prince of Orange nearly captured before finding safety in the 7th Belgium Line Battalion, and he gave the battalion the Star of the Order of William from his chest, saying, "My brave Belgians, take it. You have won it fairly. You have deserved it." As Wellington was returning to Quatre after talking to Blucher, he was nearly captured by the French at Pierremont, and when he did return, Thomas Picton and his brigade arrived, and he ordered a detachment of the 95th Rifles to the north of Pierremont to prevent a breakthrough by the French. To prevent the French from breaking through the Allied centre, the Dutch 6th Hussars charged the 6th Chasseurs al Cheval, but the Chasseurs were able to repel the Hussars. When the 5th Belgian Light Dragoons arrived, officers from both sides recognized each other due to the Belgians and Dutch once serving in Napoleon's army. The Chasseurs officers pleaded to their counterparts to join them, but the Light Dragoons charged, but they were repelled by the Chasseurs when the Chasseurs launched a counterattack and overrun 2 Dutch artillery batteries, and only being stopped by the 92nd Highlanders directed by Wellington himself. The situation was precarious for the Allied army, with the French nearly overrunning them at several points. At 3 p.m, Marshal Ney got news from Napoleon to defeat Wellington and to join him to envelop the Prussians at Ligny. The French traders pushed the Dutch deeper into Balsa Wood, with the Dutch requesting reinforcements, and luckily the Black Brunswickers arrived and they were sent to support the Dutch in the woods, with the Brunswick cavalry led by the commander of the Black Brunswickers, Frederick William, Duke of Brunswick, also known as the Black Duke, set up position near the British artillery battery, where he happily smoked his pipe as bullets and cannonballs flied around him. Picton ordered his men to attack the French at Gimmoncourt, with the Dutch supporting them. The Allied advanced through a field where the crops were so tall they couldn't see in front of them, and when they saw the French gave them a devastating volley, but Picton then ordered his men to then charge at the enemy. But the French cavalry charged, so the British had to form square, stopping their advance. During the fight, a musket ball hit Picton in the hip, which was serious, but despite his wound, he refused to leave his men. Ney then led the French light infantry against the Dutch and pushed them back deeper into the woods. When the 3rd Infantry Regiment engaged the Brunswickers, the Black Duke ordered his Uhlans to charge the 3rd, but the French repelled the cavalry charge and forced them to retreat, with Black Duke joining his infantry. Then the French dragoons charged and he ordered his men to form square and fall back, but he was killed by a gunshot as he rallied his men. With no command due to the Black Duke's death, the Brunswick Hussars charged the dragoons, but they were repelled, with the dragoons chasing them but were stopped by the 92nd Highlanders, which repelled the dragoons. During this, the French 3rd Infantry Regiment advanced up the road to Quatre, and Wellington ordered the 92nd Highlanders to stop the French advance, and the Highlanders pushed the French back, but artillery fire forced the Highlanders to retire. But when the Highlanders saw the French lancers, they thought they were Belgian cavalry. Only when a German told them that they were French cavalry, there was no time for them to form square, and the Highlanders fought desperately against the lancers, but were able to repel the lancers, and the Highlanders' battery Maud retreated back to the heights. At 5 p.m., the Hanoverians arrived and formed up for the battle. The Hanoverians, along with the 95th Rifles, attacked the French at Permont and captured an artillery battery before having to retreat by the French. At this time, Ney ordered his last reserves, the French heavy cavalry under the command of Francis Kellerman, to break the Allied centre. The 30th and 33rd Foot formed square as the 73rd and 69th Foot retreated. Then Kellerman ordered his cuirassiers to charge the Hanoverians, but a devastating volley repelled the attack, with Kellerman, having his horse shot from under him, ordered the retreat, with him retreating back to friendly lines on foot along with the surviving cuirassiers. At Balsa Wood, the British 1st Foot Guards arrived and pushed the French back, and their advance was only stopped by French artillery fire, and they took cover in the woods. The 3rd Foot Guards and the Coldstream Guards arrived, and Wellington felt confident that he had superior numbers to attack the French centre, and he ordered the attack. The Brunswickers pushed the French back, but the French tried to stop them with a cavalry charge, but the Brunswickers formed square and repelled the French cavalry. Picton ordered his division to advance, but his horse was shot from under him and landed on top of him, and his aide had to help him escape. The French launched another cavalry charge, and the Brits once again repelled the attack. During this time, Wellington received a plea from Blucher asking the British for help in defeating Napoleon. Wellington then ordered a counterattack and pushed the exhausted French back, with the 1st Foot Guards routed the French 3rd Infantry Regiment, but were forced to retreat by French cavalry and were only saved by the Brunswickers repelling the French cavalry. With night falling and both sides exhausted, the French retreated from Gimmoncourt, thus ending the battle. The French lost 4,140 to 4,400 men, and the British suffered 4,800 to 5,600 men, with Dillon arriving to support Ney after the battle was over, much to Ney's fury, because if Dillon arrived on time, he would have defeated Wellington. If you like this video, like and subscribe. See you next time.